because I do 1,300 crunches and sit-ups 4 times a week.
What's a dose? Can you translate for us?
Winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Ernie Els.
Welcome back to the Go Track, everybody. Dalmason here, the podcast about golf and golf adjacent stuff, mostly from Africa. Great to be back here in the almost the unofficial goat shed now. It's becoming live in person with my guy JDV. Hello, JDV.
What's up, T-Dog? How's it going?
It's going good. I actually wish we were just recording our previous conversation because it might have gone on for quite a while, talking about stupid Instagram videos with kids.
Yeah, kids. I was basically saying how George is in that phase where everything he looks at is like, what's this? What's this? And it's like that, you know, that clip of Borat where he's in the grocery store and he's pointing at all the cheeses. He's like, and this one, that's cheese. And this, also cheese. And this one, cheese. And he basically does that to us every day. It's like 6 dustbins in a row. He's like, what's this? That's a dustbin. What's this? Also a dustbin. So that's where we are at the moment.
The first time you go to the game reserve, you're going to have to film that. You're going to blow his mind. Or you probably don't have to waste money going to a game reserve. You can just go to the petting zoo, basically.
Well, yeah. So that's
where
where we're going on Saturday. Like, I don't know if I told you, the music and petting zoo combination. So that could be interesting. No doubt I'm going to have to... Look, the word that he's learnt is a glockenspiel, so I don't know how many people know even what a glockenspiel is, but he has figured that one out.
That's going to be a clanger when he's at nursery school. First day.
I was like,
oh no, I play the glockenspiel.
Or they're like, this is a xylophone. Glockenspiel.
Lecturing the other kids on the difference between a recorder and a glockenspiel.
It's going to be a nightmare.
Sure. No, otherwise good, JDV. Nice to be back in the shed with you. Great little interview Taki did there with Mike Hollick. For those of you who caught that, fascinating. Just really cool guy, Mike, and hearing his kind of raw details of like basically, I think I'm tapping out of this game, and still blows my mind like the shit that these golfers, like the mental game that they go through their golfing career. I mean, I've started listening to the podcast with Eddie Pepperell, the Chipping Forecast, the UK-based podcast, and I mean, every week they basically, Eddie's on there and he's like, missed the cut again on the challenge. You know, Eddie's on the Challenger tour now, and he's like, I'm a fucking terrible human, and like he's just like the deprecation is just so intense being a professional.
I mean, I
golfer.
always try and relate it back to our golf games, and I mean, you think about the self-hatred you give yourself when you're having a bad round of golf, and that's meant to be like fun. Now imagine that's your job, and you're still calling yourself a piece of shit after every single bad shot. I mean, I've got maximum respect for those guys who can live under that amount of pressure. Live and die with the shots, and you can understand like when it becomes work. And I mean, I know they've still got a love for the game and they enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it is like that's their income, that's their job. And you know, if you go through a period where you like cuck at your job, you must question yourself to be like, right, is this the right career? Is it not? And it's just really awesome to hear the stories like from Mark where, you know, he's gone through the bottom, come out the other side, young family, just like absolutely balling now. I'm really hoping that now with the opportunities that have opened up for him, we'll see a lot more of him in the sort of European tour and that arena, because it's great to follow those stories and again see it from the sort of beginning at the Sunshine Tour.
Yeah, and it's also been nice. I think what's one of the surprising things about this podcast, I mean, we legitimately joked when we started this podcast. We were like, guys, like, what are we going to do? Follow players on the Sunshine Tour? Like, what a joke, you know? Like, we were literally like, we're not going to be doing that. But having said that, it's been really cool to meet some of these guys. And now I'm genuinely interested. Like, when I'm logging on a leaderboard, I'm looking, where's Jono Broomhead? Like, I'm looking forward to old Luca Filippi coming back, and I want to see where Mike's doing, you know. So there's no doubt that it gives you a bit more interest in, like, once you meet and chat to these guys. And I think what I'd really like to understand, which Taki didn't ask Mike, but I'd like to know this from, like, general pros, is to understand, like, golfers' form. Like, so, you know, us as amateur golfers, and you can talk to this more, like, playing more golf than I do, but for me, golf is like any given Sunday. I can play 3 rounds, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I can be, like, completely bipolar. You know, I can wake up hungover, go out there, and I can break 80, and then the next day I would have had, like, 9 hours of sleep, and I would have broken 80 the day before, and I won't break 90, you know. For golfers, and I'm sure some of them will say, yeah, they do have their times, but it does seem like they hit patches of form which seem to last, like, weeks and months. And I'd love to understand why that is and how that happens. Like, obviously there must be, a lot of it must be their mental approach, where they just feel like they're not overthinking the game, they're playing well. But more than that, I'd love to understand, like, how I suppose they would love to know as well, how they get themselves into that, like, purple patch. Because it's a real thing with most golfers. Like, outside of the top 1%, like the Rorys and that, who can sort of rock up any weekend, most of these guys go through, like, massive ups and downs, which last 3-4 months.
But isn't it a just combination of a huge amount of variables? You know, is it your body's feeling good, your mental side is good, you know, and you build on that. I mean, again, relating it back, I think obviously they've got a much higher floor, so you'll probably find the highs and the lows are not as high and low as maybe a guy that goes out there and can, you know, shoot a 20-shot swing in, like, 1-2 days of golf. But still, you look at someone like Dunlap, who's, you know, by all accounts, like a top player. I mean, he is. I mean, he's, you know, playing Augusta and the rest of it, but can go out there and just, you know, admit to everyone, be like, I've lost it. I've lost my swing.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, is what makes it such a great game, is you've never truly figured it out. There's always something niggling in your swing, or something niggling in your mind, or sort of a golf course that you haven't quite unlocked, and it's just that constant pursuit of getting better. Yeah. And I think everyone's got that, regardless of what level you're playing.
Anyway, it was a lucky interview. JDV, we recently were invited to play in a unique day of match play at Gowrie Farm, and yeah, kindly invited. Shout out to Guy Smith and Roger Newman. They've been running a day at Gowrie. Well, they actually do it twice a year, but essentially it's started with just amongst sort of their groups of friends, and now, you know, some members of Gowrie and other courses have joined in, but they really have tried to replicate what a typical day is like at a Scottish golf course, and Muirfield in particular. So Guy Smith, who founded Gowrie, is a member of Muirfield in Scotland, and he played a lot of golf over there, and he wanted to really introduce guys to what a typical day at Muirfield feels like, and we thought it'd be a good opportunity. So we played in this day, and we thought it'd be a great opportunity just to kind of share our experience, and just to talk a little bit, maybe give guys some, you know, ideas for their home clubs, talk a little bit about the day, what we liked, you know, what was special about it. So the day was called it's called the Muirfield Quaich, or they call it the Quaich, and I did have to double check that pronunciation a couple of times, JDV, but I did. ChatGPT did officially tell me that.
Is it Quake or Quaich?
It's Quake, like earthquake.
Like Quake, as in
Unless
the computer game that we
Quaich.
used to play. The computer game where you,
Yeah,
the Doom 2 adjacent game.
Look, if you pronounce it Quaich, no, yeah. So apparently it's Quaich, Quaich. Did you do some homework? Okay, so a quake is a physical thing. Did you do some homework on exactly what a quake is?
a shallow cup with 2 handles. What was it? The Scottish Love Cup or something. So I mean, from my very brief research, it's sometimes like a wedding gift that you get in Scotland. I assume and that this is, you know, as you'd play for any sort of cup in, I don't know, South Africa, you know, this is essentially the equivalent of the cup for the day, the Quaich.
Yeah, so Quaich is basically their sort of traditional. It's become their traditional trophy in Scottish, and I think it extends past like golf.
But was it always a trophy, or was it
so it
know,
was
like getting like cufflinks or something?
It's a Scottish drinking vessel that's sort of over 400 years old, and it is a symbol of the country's welcoming spirit and hospitality. It's essentially almost looks like a shallow pot, and it has 2 sets of handles, essentially so that a drink can be shared with a friend simultaneously. Gonna say, you and I never got a chance to do that that evening, but that's that's maybe something we have to try next time. Yeah, so that's kind of the term. Quaich is a cup. I mean, do you want to lay out kind of what the day involved from when we arrived at the cup, from when we arrived at Gowrie, and then we can take it from there.
So I think, yes, I'm happy to do that. It's the Muirfield Quaich is what they call it, and you play it at Gowrie. And my understanding was that it was adopted from Muirfield Club, and as we know, Gowrie takes a lot of inspiration from places like Muirfield. And I thought I'd just read from Muirfield's club book that they've published online, because I think it will influence quite a lot of the discussion that we're going to have. So it talks about, in the club book, it talks about what the traditions are, and then says, while recognizing the merits of other forms of golf, the club has always preferred match play to stroke play and alternate shot 2-ball foursomes to other varieties of competition. Whether in the formal club matches or friendly gatherings, the team ethic and pace of play, this will become a theme later for you, Terence, pace of play of the foursomes are the heart of the club's activities. The club matches are played level and are very competitive. Matches are remarkably swift, with players and caddies advancing down the fairway ahead of their partners' drives to be ready to play their second shots as balls land. 7 dinners are held each year, presided over by the captain wearing the traditional red jacket. He is assisted by the recorder, who is responsible for managing the recording and subsequent settlements of bets between members. All matches and bets are entered into the club's bet book for posterity to examine them. An 1880 entry records CVM, not played, C-funked. So I think that gives a sort of a good brief into what's been adopted and what sort of laid out ahead of us at Gowrie.
Yeah, out of interest, I did actually message Roger and earlier today, and I said, Rog, what is the sort of difference between, you know, the day we experienced at Gowrie and what a day is like at Muirfield? He said, Terence, basically exactly the same. You guys pretty much got the that's a typical Quaich day at Muirfield. And then I said, well, how often does this happen? He said, Terence, that is a normal day at Muirfield. So you arrive in your number ones, you whoever's there, they pull names, they create foursomes, and that's it. So it's not a special occasion.
Well, let's take it a step back and just quickly talk about the organization that we had to do. So it's obviously a very formal event, and let's maybe just start with the dress code that we had to arrange beforehand. So the dress code is you have to arrive in a jacket and tie, and you then get your welcoming, the pairings get done. Everyone has a white Russian. I thought it was the one from the Big Lebowski, but I don't think is it the same white Russian that we had is the one from the Big Lebowski. That I think Jeff Bridges is the main character there. But anyway, I think that was about 7 o'clock in the morning. So there was a big silver bowl of that cocktail ready.
Sorry, it's a Moscow Mule.
Moscow Mule,
not a white
yes.
Russian.
No,
I was like,
So the White Russian is what they have in the Big Lebowski.
Oh,
So
okay.
The Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, so those are on offer, as with coffees and scones and muffins and the rest of it. You and I both opted for tweed jackets. You had a tie. I went with a bow tie, which maybe was a bit of a bold call considering I hadn't done this
I
before.
mean, a level of detail that people should know. JDV had a bow tie on at 6:30 in the morning.
6 in the morning, drinking a Moscow Mule. It was quite. Even that tweed jacket had a bit of a story. You know, looked on online, found a second-hand tweed jacket, ordered it for a couple of $100, took it to the tailor down the road, got it tailored. So I'm a very proud owner after having to arrange that of a new tweed jacket.
I did try and, just out of interest, everyone, I did try and convince JDV to play his new golf clubs, which are now sitting up on his wall in his office.
Set of hickories.
His hickories. But yeah, he's still unconvinced whether he wants to take a full swing with his hickories or not. But I feel like you did miss an opportunity there I mean, you looked the part. Outside of not having a little leather bag in those hickories, you would have been MVP for sure.
But I think most of the Oaks arrived in something similar to that tee. We certainly weren't out of place in a tweed jacket. And then the idea is that you get changed again into your sort of normal golf kit. There wasn't any special golf kit you had to wear. It was just your sort of ordinary run-of-the-mill golf kit.
Yeah.
Then at lunchtime, you come off. We'll discuss the format, the golf format, but you came off after your first match. You got showered, got changed back into your jacket and tie, and sat down for a full-on 3-course meal for lunch.
A full 3-course meal.
With wine and the rest of it, flowing beers. After that, you got
my understanding, just out of interest, my understanding is at the first sort of 4 quakes that they had, they put out a certain number of bottles of wine, and they basically, the instruction was, gentlemen, we will not be teeing off for the second matches until all these bottles are finished. And needless to say, apparently a few guys had a couple of freshies on the first tee of the second round. So I think they've pulled the throttle back a little bit on the amount to be consumed. But look, certainly, I was fairly warmed up after that 3-course meal.
But no one was
no, there was
falling around or anything.
No, it was jovial.
So
at best.
Then you go out for your second match, and you come back. Everyone gets showered again, and then everyone has to get into tuxedos. Now, I don't own a tuxedo. I did manage to get a tuxedo from Sean, who, when I got it from Sean, said no, he had actually got the tuxedo from Ken, my stepdad. So that tuxedo was probably
triple hand
80s, 70s, 80s tuxedo, and it looked about 40 years old.
Again, could have been the right one to wear.
I look like, you know, that scene in The Shining where they take that photo of all of the guys in their dress. That I look like one of the characters from The Shining. So I took one look at that very terribly cut tuxedo and thought, I can't rock up to this event with that. So
2 improvements potentially to make before the next quake is to play your hickories
and wear the Shining tuxedo.
Yeah. Okay. So look, you kindly also hired me a tuxedo, but I think next time let's make a deal. We're only going to use like somebody else's tuxedo just to see how that turns out.
Well, the cost of the tuxedo hire, I mean, that is a business to go. That's
a
business to go into.
It's another good reason to borrow from a friend.
But yeah, so it was a black tie event for supper, and then there's a couple of speeches, another sort of big 3-course meal, bottles of wine, and an absolutely thoroughly enjoyable day. It's a long day. I mean, we had to get up, probably leave Durban at 5:30. Stayed over in Gowrie, and then took a very slow drive back the next day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good kind of summary of the events of the day. But really the format. So just to give a concept of how many people were there, they've got 2 teams of 18, so there's 36 people, which is like a perfect number of people for having like one big like dinner table, and it was a really great atmosphere, and it feels like a good number of people for a club Look. This was also done. It wasn't done on like a Saturday or a Sunday. I think it was the day before the public holiday.
Thursday.
Yeah. So, for people to take a day off work and to do this, probably the right number. You don't want to be aiming for like 50 or 60 people. And a good number of people that you could feel like I sort of felt like I met at least maybe 60 or 70% of the people during the day. But 2 teams of 18, and we never played together during the day. They paired us up. No idea what sort of strategy was there behind the pairings. I think there was some strategy with alternating. I think they decided on their pairs, and then they announced them in sort of snake-like format. So Guy would announce a pair, and then I think Roger, knowing some of the players, he would take maybe a strong pair against another strong pair, etc.
But the pairings, I mean, both of my games, I'm not sure about the others, but we played off the shoulder. So the way that the handicaps all worked out, it was generally, I think 1 or 2 shots between the guys, but you're mainly playing it off the shoulder.
Generally, yeah.
And then I think the other thing worth mentioning is a good mix. It seemed like there was a good mix of guys that had obviously played there before. I think what was the tradition that if you've played three Quaichs, then you get a purple tie. So there were a couple of purple ties floating around. I think some fines were
handed out as well.
Correct, and somewhere were handed out if you had played your third. So that was also quite a cool wrinkle to get that consistency going. While introducing you guys to the format.
Yeah, and they do it in autumn and in spring. Look, this is probably something that maybe other clubs do. I'd be interested if other clubs did a day of foursomes golf the entire day, because I do think that's a unique thing that, JDV, you've played a lot of club golf. I've never come across that. There's very much we I think tend to have in South Africa a very American approach to our golf, where
yes and no. I think South Africans play a lot of match play, but we play a lot of Stableford match play. I know guys want to put scores in, so it's like, well, I'm playing this weekend. I want to play a round that I can.
But
put
they
want
to play their own ball.
Correct.
They want to put a score in. I think putting scores in is a big thing. In the UK, they do a once a month like handicap round. That's basically how your handicap's determined. Otherwise, you're generally playing match play. And I think playing our own ball. A lot of guys are going, look, I've taken the time out to play golf. I want to play my own ball. I get that. We've done golf tours before where we've introduced foursomes, and some guys are not like really that into it. They want to play. They see it as playing less golf. Honestly, I think it's a great addition to a golf tour to have
we did
a day of foursomes.
We did it on our Garden Route golf tour where we played the Sedge Links, which is a little 9-hole. Sort of executive par 3-ish course.
Executive's a strong word for Sedge Links.
Yeah, it's a mashie. It's executive mashie.
It's not an executive anything.
So there we played alternate shots.
Sure.
So, and that was quite cool. It wasn't part of the main golf tour. It was a sort of a handshake opener round. And
I think it's maybe a nice thing to do as a 9-hole. If you're on a golf tour, to do it as an afternoon round. So we've done it before where we did 36 holes in a day, and we played 4 balls in the morning and then foursomes in the afternoon. Look, some guys are not up for 36 holes, even if you're playing foursomes in the afternoon. But okay, so look, my matches certainly weren't all off the shoulder, because I came up against like pretty much a plus handicap from DCC in both my matches. And for both matches, we both ended up teeing off the same hole. So it wasn't very flattering for me. The whole day I was being compared to a plus handicap, which was tough. But maybe talk a little bit about foursomes, JDV. What's your, like, having played a full day of foursomes like that, and then I can chat a little bit about the Young Tom Morris Cup as well, where we played a round of foursomes. What are your thoughts on foursomes and like the dynamics of it and like the speed of the matches?
So certainly, it's almost quicker than if 2 guys were playing around, because you are guys are walking ahead, as I read at the beginning. You're walking ahead, waiting for the guys to tee off, and then you're pretty much there, ready to go. I think your partner is quite important. You want at least consistent players playing foursomes. You don't want to spend your time looking for golf balls and taking drops and the rest of it. So I think foursomes works. You don't have to be necessarily a scratch golfer or a low handicap to play foursomes, but I think you've got to be a pretty consistent golfer to play foursomes, to not, make your partner pull his hair out.
Well, I think my take on that is I think it's important that the matches are between similar levels in foursomes.
You see, I almost would disagree with that in the sense that you're wanting each hole to be tight. So if you've got guys that are spraying it, for instance, you pretty much walk a hole and then the next hole sprays it on the next hole. So that's like a gimme hole. Like you need at least consistency that you like putting out and there's something on each green.
Are you saying high handicappers shouldn't be playing foursomes?
I think
half would be all over you right now. He would be litigating you.
I think high handicappers are better suited to like a better ball format where they can come in with points here and there. It doesn't mean if they ring a hole that's the hole done for the team. I genuinely think that foursomes is better suited to like mid to lower handicaps from a competitive standpoint. Unless you've got, if you think about 4 high handicappers going out there and playing foursomes,
segregation from JDV already. No
golf snob.
If you're higher than a 15 handicap, you're not allowed to play foursomes on JDV's course. I disagree with that. Like, because I know guys at the young Tom Morris, like, and they, the way they did it there is that they very much try to do the number 1 seeds, the sort of 1 and 2 seed of each team played foursomes against each other, and they kept the levels. And there were some sick stories of like the high handicap groups where Oaks were winning holes with like 9s and like absolute pillow fights out there. So I think over a hole, I think it kind of evens itself out. Like, if you've got high handicappers, there's no ways that they play like every hole perfectly. So guys would come back into a hole like it. I think the more important thing is that you're playing similar levels.
Yeah.
That would be my take on that. But you talk about Muirfield and that, and chatting with. So what was really cool is that quite a few of the guys who I played with, JDV, had actually gone over and played at Muirfield with Roger and Guy. They'd done like a trip. So at least 2 of the guys had done a trip to Scotland and obviously been hosted at Muirfield. By the way, like, feels like something we need to get onto, because apparently if you play as a guest of a member at Muirfield, the green fee's like £12. Like, apparently it's literally outrageous.
I'm pretty sure that if you've managed to book a ticket and fly all the way to Muirfield and book your accommodation, you're paying whatever they charge you.
Yeah, no, but that's like to play pretty much a top 10 course in the world, like for £12 sounds pretty good. But yeah, so Muirfield has apparently been called like the best kind of match play or foursomes course kind of in the world, because the way the Muirfield is designed is that it's got 2 kind of, from what I understand, like sort of the routing is done in a way that almost every hole is almost at like a right angle to the hole before. And so from the exit of every green, there's apparently 2 paths. There's a path for the player to walk to the tee box who's hitting his tee shot, and then there's a path for the foursomes partner who's hitting the second shot to walk to the fairway. So you guys are getting around there in like 2.5 hours apparently playing foursomes, because you're on the tee box, your partner's almost standing there like kind of watching your ball come through. Now, I did want to shout out a couple of instances in our round of foursomes where myself and the plus handicap player had both walks up like 120 meters, and then one of our partners, and this happened a couple of times, literally topped the ball like 20 meters off the tee.
You have to do the walk of shame back.
Proper walk of shame. Or you have to hit a provisional, which I didn't realize the provi is hit by the partner, not by the person who hits it out, which was yeah, that's always a tough scene when you're hiking back like 30 meters and you just kind of look at the guy and you say, sorry.
Is this why you got slightly cucked on for your slow pace of play?
Yeah, there was a few moments there when our captain had a word with me and he said, listen, where have you guys been? You know, we've been in here for 40 minutes. Yeah, there were lots of excuses given. That's definitely something that the guys pride themselves on. Like, if you more than 3.5 hours out there, you're going to get
called out.
You're going to get called out on it. Like 3 hours, I think, is kind of the goal. I think anything more than 3.5, the guys are going to say, like, listen, what were you guys doing out there?
Own up.
Yeah. Look, and I get it. It is also match play, and a lot of the matches are ending, you know, before you come down 16th hole, 17th hole. So, but JDV, like, what were your... Okay, so, like, you're quite a competitive guy. What were your takes on, like, the format in terms of, like, dynamics with your partner and, like, so how'd you get your head around that? Because I know you've owned up to struggling to being a team player,
which I must say,
where you cuck on your paddle partners. Apparently,
I feel like I've got a lot better. And then last night we played paddle, and there was one rally where all the hard work had been done. The ball went up at the nets. Partner runs forward. I'm like, right, here we go. This is going to be like done and dusted. Smashes it into the nets, and I couldn't help but just go, fuck. So, needless to say, I don't think my partner was
didn't send you any
thrilled.
Didn't send you any emojis.
But I did it in
after the match.
Anyway, so look, the my first partner that I had, very very lucky guy. He was same sort of he was about a 12 or an 11 handicap, but hit it very short. Now I'm not a long hitter either. So again, like it was quite tricky because we were both playing sort of long irons all over the show, and the guys that we played against were pretty long hitters. So you always sort of felt a little bit behind the 8 ball there. We did have a very good match. We lost it 2-1, and a bit of a fizzle out as well. I mean, we lost 2 balls on the 8th hole. And that was sort of all she wrote. We didn't even get to the green. So that was the 2-1 loss. And then the second 18 that we played, I played with a member from VCC morning school who I play with very often, Glenn. And he's, I think, a 7 or 6 or a 7 handicap. Also very competitive. So, and I knew what I was in for. I mean, I've played a lot of golf with Glenn. So then I was super fired up. Yeah. We were 3 down with 4 to play and managed to win 4 in a row to win it.
So sick.
So, yeah, it got a bit tense at the end. It was quite funny. So on the sort of 18th hole now where you're trying your best to lock in, and there's and the one guy's caddy was just walking backwards and forwards, like between, and you know it's late in the day, so the long shadows are there. So her shadow had probably crossed the Oaks ball while he was addressing it to play that quite a tricky shot over the water onto the green for the match. And I was just like, ooh, this is a tough scene. Because, anyway, needless to say, I think he dumped it in the water, and then I think he pulled it left, and then it was all pretty much done and dusted from there. But, I think that was a great match, very competitive the whole way through, but like in a good way. You know, it wasn't mean-spirited in any way or anything like that. You know, both teams wanted to win. And that, for me, that foursomes in particular was epic, where, you know, everyone's always in play on all the holes, and you're just focusing on shot execution.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, okay, if I can punch out here, we can still get up and down. Like maybe we'll halve it. Like, no, that was like, how do we get as close as possible for birdie to win this?
Yeah, I think I thoroughly enjoyed all of my matches, and it's quite hard in foursomes to stop. Especially if you don't hit a good shot, to like stop saying like sorry to your partner. And I think that's always like I'd always say to my partner at the beginning of every match, like, listen, we don't apologize, you know, but of course when you like hit it like 40 meters right,
skull it, and you're like, oh, sorry.
I don't want to be like a dick and be like, you're up, you know. Yeah, I want to be like, sorry about that one, you know. But I think the variability in matches is what I really loved of the formats. I think like you were never out of a hole because, like, you know, when you're playing 4 balls, you essentially statistically the guys are more likely to, like, you know, make a bogey or make a par or bogey. Whereas in these, like literally anything could happen. As you know, in your match where you guys had that massive comeback, and we had a match in the Young Tom Morris which was kind of similar, where we made a big comeback. But like, as I said, I found it really tough because obviously you got to be strategic with which holes you decide to tee off on, and at Gowrie in particular, if you decide to take the even holes, then you're hitting 4 out of the 5 par 5 shots, par 3 shots, sorry. So typically teams would put their better player, better iron player, which is normally their better player, onto the even holes. Don't know why I ended up on that holes, particularly in my first match, because my partner was better than me. And so I was teeing off 8 par 3s against a plus handicap wasn't very flattering again in my golf game. But I mean, just like in general, I think we wanted to do this podcast because we had such a great day. Take the kind of camaraderie and the dress attire and, like, you know, the whole like protocol out of it, which was fantastic. Like the
which
lunch,
is certain, it's additive.
It's certainly additive. I think just a round of foursomes is so much fun.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, you can maybe make a comp of it against playing like a 2-ball scramble or something JDV, but in my mind, playing like having the pressure of like that you only get one shot. Like a scramble is a bit of a fun, but bit of a like a joke format. As a competitive match, a foursomes, like having to have that pressure of you only hitting the alternate shot. Your partner's got to hit from wherever you put him. Particularly on a course like Gowrie, where there's, as we know, there's some hazards, and we can get onto that. Was flip, it's so much fun, and I think we like. I don't know, we like kind of encourage guys to explore bringing foursomes more into like your golf tours. As I say, you know, I think it could work well if you play 18 holes in the morning and maybe you go out and do like a 9-hole foursomes in the afternoon, or even 18 foursomes in the afternoon. Every time we've done that on a golf tour, it's been a hell of a lot of fun. And I think as a 36-hole day, JDV, like playing 2 rounds of foursomes was epic. Like it felt like a lot of golf and a lot of walking, but it doesn't feel like that much golf.
I was about to say, it didn't actually feel like that much golf.
Didn't feel like that much golf.
And because you locked into a match and you're playing, you know, obviously every second shot, like it was fantastic. Yeah. I think just what I wanted to say, and I think this will transition us nicely into maybe a bit of a course discussion. There has been a bit of a divide in opinion on Gowrie's new holes. I absolutely love them, and I think having listened to the pod that you did with Guy, where he explained sort of what we had discussed now about the origins from Muirfield and some of the other Scottish courses, that everyone has this idea of what a golf course should look like in terms of a championship layout, certain distances, certain clubs that you should be hitting driver off every hole. I mean, that's how I think there's that thought process.
At least every par 5.
Certainly.
According to T-Bag.
Yeah. But I think where you're playing match play, your score on a hole is irrelevant in terms of what's on the scorecard. It's only relevant in terms of what, you know, your opponents are playing on a hole.
Such a great point.
And that sort of changes the outlook that I have on Gowrie, you know, because it is pretty difficult in some situations to get a par. But again, it's difficult for everyone to get a par on those holes. And you've got to think your way around it to say, okay, well, what is the easiest way here to make par? Because par's probably going to win it. And it's not a case of going out there and saying, oh, you know, I was 2 meters offline and I was in a coffin bunker and I couldn't get out and took a ring. It's like, okay, but that shouldn't really be your mindset around those new holes. You know, you should be. It reminds me a lot of like what it does for us that are not pros and don't have that distance is you can stand up on a tee box and plot away to the hole that isn't driver, whatever iron you have in based on the distance. You can stand on a tee box and say, okay, what club do I need to hit to get to a specific distance, which will make me feel comfortable to hit, a shorter distance so I don't bring certain bunkers into play on the green, which gives me a certain angle, because as we know with the wall hole or the hole before that, I think it's the
fourth hole.
The fourth hole. Fourth hole is a good example of you've got to give yourself an angle, you've got to give yourself a distance, and you can't just smash a driver and be upset if it's in a bit of rough in the bunker, because now it's like an impossible shot to the green. It's like, figure that out before you play the shot. Like, before you play the hole, you need to figure that out.
Well, particularly in a match play situation where sometimes what you're doing is you're responding to what your partners have done. So sometimes you need to say, look, we need to be aggressive here. They're green side. We've got to get a ball up there. Or they look like they're potentially in trouble. There's three ways we can play this hole. Let's go like super conservative, because we're going to be guaranteed a bogey is going to win us here. So, and my take is that a course like Gowrie, and particularly the new holes that have been designed, is a brilliant match play course exactly for that reason, because there are such a variety of ways, and there's so many hazards that lurk on that course, and I don't mean that in like it's covered with dams and rivers and that, but there's so many.
You get your hand caught in the cookie jar.
Potential places where you can just try and be a little bit too aggressive, and you can end up completely on the wrong side of a green, and you completely blindsided, and that can cost you a hole very quickly.
Well, I mean, I think a good example is the third, which the green complex here, they sort of wanted to a bit of a homage to the road hole.
So sorry, just quickly, so if you guys haven't listened to that episode, I really encourage you to go and listen to, I think it's episode 14 that I did with Guy Smith, who is the architect of Gowrie Farm, and he kind of explains the original origins of the golf course from its origins. It's just a farm to being this sort of hybrid 12 green 18 hole golf course to now the addition of the 7 new holes, which has completed the course. And basically, for those of you familiar with Gowrie Farm, you play the first hole hasn't changed. The second hole is what used to be the old 11th hole, and that par 3, and then from the third to the 9th hole are all new holes. So the third hole, you were going to say, JDV?
Yeah, so the third hole with that sort of road hole
feel
complex at the green. I mean, I told you the last time I played there, you see the distance to the flag, and that's the distance you go at. And I mean, it was, now when we played it was like, okay, well, what distance do I have to play to be short of the green? Because realizing that short of the green there is way better than being pin high, but left or right. Left or right, you're going to be playing ping pong. But 100%. If you're short of the green, you can easily putt at the length of the green, and a par is probably going to win that hole. Short
or long. I mean, I think like with the, what I love about that hole, the third hole and then the fourth hole, and I bring up the fourth because I think it's actually the greens are totally different on those two holes. So on the third hole, you have a longish, thinnish green, which has got some contours on it for sure, and it has the road hole bunker on the left-hand side, deep single pot bunker, and then you've got a runoff on the right, which is a reasonable runoff. I mean, and then you've got the wall that comes into play on the right from that tee box. So if you go too far right, you can actually end up against the wall of that tee box. And then if you left, obviously, and you're near that bunker, even if you're not in the bunker, if you're on the wrong side of it, it's almost impossible to get your ball, back up onto the green. So you either want to be, again, a great example, if the pin is on the front of that green, you want to stay short, or even if it's in the middle tier, you want to stay short. I think if the pin's right at the back, taking maybe a club extra is you'd rather be hitting from behind the green back up. And then again, there's options off the tee of that hole. So, a lot of the guys I played with, the older guys, weren't taking on the hazard from the tee box. They're very dependent on the wind direction. If you're into the wind, it's quite a big carry for them. So there's a huge fairway down the left-hand side, but then that gives you a worse angle into that green. You bring in
and a much longer shot.
A longer shot, and you're bringing the bunker more into play. You're hitting almost slightly across that green. Great hole.
So the other one I wanted to shout out again, just to speak to the match play aspect of it, was the ninth, where the ninth is a great one where you're saying, okay, if I and there was a 2T start, so the second one we actually finished on, the first one we played, we finished on the ninth, and it's a good example of you can force the issue. So again, if you are one up with one to play, you take an iron off that box, short iron onto that green, and the guys that are chasing the game are like, shit, we got to take a driver. And as you know, if you go left or right of that green, which is, very much inverted bowl, you're going to be playing ping pong. It's a tough green to hold, but if you hit the drive, it's a very birdieable hole as well. So I think speaking to the match play aspect of it, where someone's like, oh, I hit a great drive, now I'm in this bunker and I'm getting a double bogey. It's like, okay, but that's a bit irrelevant in match play. You shouldn't be just trying to overpower it.
100%, yeah. I think the fourth hole is a really good example of I think the new fourth hole for me is, that was the hole I saw during match play across both those events that I played in, like people approaching it most different ways, and wanted to bring up the third versus the fourth, because the fourth is the complete opposite of the third. The third is long, particularly if you're into the wind. The fourth hole is a short hole. You can pretty much drive the green, but the green is completely rotated by 90 degrees. So what it's testing is and it's got two massive tiers on it as well. It's kind of testing your distance ability. You can spray it a little left or right there, but it's testing, can you hit the number basically? And again, if you playing in a match and your opponents decide they're going to take on that green and they hit a good drive, that you can easily get the ball up onto that green or into a greenside bunker. You've got a big call to make there. If you're going to lay back with like a 4-iron or maybe a 3-wood, or some guys even hit like a 6-iron and then hit a pitching wedge in. It's such a fun hole, that hole.
But I don't think, to take away anything from the old holes that are now the back nine, there's still a lot of those options available on many of the holes.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think about what's it, the par 5, what's it now, the third, no,
the
sorry,
10th.
the 10th, yes, the par 5 10th, easy one that you can go for in 2 if you've hit a good drive there. The 18th, it's still,
18th is an unreal match play hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys can tee it up and
so much can happen.
Go over the dam.
Well, I think the 16th is probably the best example of that, where
100%.
you can, I hit everything on that day from a 8-iron off that tee to a driver, 8-iron way back, and then you're hitting a wedge in, or driver, let's get the ball up there.
So the second round that we played there, my partner put a driver into the water, try to sort of go over all of the hit a nice one, but into the water, took a drop, and I probably put that wedge to about maybe a foot for the tap and par.
Kick in.
And that was one of the ones that we got back. So they were in play,
yes.
Sort of made a hash of the approach and made a bogey. And we went from, they obviously thought, okay, well, this match is almost done and dusted. We're going to go dormy here, to losing that hole and then, going down the last two. So yeah, that was a bit of a turning point in our one.
So I wanted to just talk briefly about, before we close, the new holes and I guess some of the psychology around some of the feedback I think that they've had, because let's be honest, it has been mixed, and that was no different at the Young Tom Morris. It was very interesting chatting to the guys at Young Tom Morris, that comp that I played in, because a lot of those guys are up from Joburg and they've been playing in it for a number of years. And obviously for a lot of them, this was the first time they'd played the new holes, or maybe the second time. And what I found interesting is that particularly very low handicap golfers have been the most negative about those new holes. And I think that is quite interesting, because I think those are golfers who are likely to complain about the fairness of a golf course the most, because I think guys at that level believe if I hit a very good shot, it deserves to be
A good result.
A good result.
Yeah.
If I hit the ball well, I'm not a hacker. I'm not going to hack it 50 meters off. And they are the ones who have been caught up the most in some of the strategy that you need around those new holes. And I found that very interesting. And I played with a guy at Young Tom Morris on Saturday afternoon who is a very good golfer they played with two guys. The one is a very good golfer. He was like, I think they should blow up all of these holes. Like this is an absolute joke. Other guy, very good golfer, and he had a completely different opinion. He sort of like felt like he appreciated the strategy around the holes a lot more. And he said even during the course of that round, he said every time he plays them, he's starting to learn like where you miss, where you don't miss. And what was quite interesting is I chatted, the one guy I played with him on Saturday morning. He was the guy who said they should like blow up all the holes and whatever. And I said to him, well, you got to kind of think your way around a little bit. And I started explaining some of the history. He obviously hasn't listened to our podcast or whatever. I said, did you know that this hole is kind of based on the template of the road hole? And there's a hole, and I showed him the hole of North Berwick, with the wall or whatever. And he was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Suddenly he was like, okay, this hasn't just been made up or whatever. Yes. And then on the second day, I played with him again, and he was like ahead of me at the green. And he started saying to one of the other guys in the group, he was like, by the way, do you know that this hole's based on like the road hole and there's a distance to the wall? And I was like, oh, so coming around, like suddenly they're seeing it. So I do think that what's great about it is that it gets people talking. I don't see a lot of unfairness in what's been built in those new holes. Listen, some of the pin locations are like
Terence, even if it is
crazy,
even if it is unfair. I mean, and again,
no, but when I say unfairness, JDV, I mean like just
it's not Mickey Mouse,
like stupid, like Mickey Mouseness, And look, straight up, like I'm a member of Gowrie and I have great sort of relationships with Guy and Roger, and then we're like, I'm still a little bit on the fence with the ninth hole. I'm not going to lie. And I've played it a lot now. And in the beginning, I was like, this is going to be a sick match play hole, whatever. Like as it's grown in a little bit in that, I think that they're going to evolve that green site a little bit. That's my feeling. I think what I saw at Young Tom Morris was a lot of guys, just everyone laying back.
Yeah.
Just there was, and I'm talking about good golfers.
There's
now.
no real reward.
And we weren't just playing foursomes. So like in 4-ball, that's the chance. If your partner's in the fairway, like go for it. And it was just, you know what? It's just too much. So we spoke a lot about like the guys are appreciative of what they're trying to do there. I think that there can be some evolvement. Like I think that hole can evolve a little bit. And I think it'll amplify the experience. I mean, credit to them; they've already made changes to the course. They've made the 7th green a little bit bigger. They've put a little bit of a backstop there.
Well, the fourth they've taken out that bunker in front of the green,
which I think has made it I think it's made it a more equitable hole. It's still a super interesting hole.
Yeah.
The guys,
I managed to miss like a 3-foot.
Interesting, like the holes across the board that guys really, really love are the 3rd hole, the 6th hole, so that par 3 across the thing. I mean, even though the green on that hole is sneakily wild, and let me tell you, we had one pin position in particular at Young Tom Morris there, which was like, it was electric. I swear, several people putted off the front of that green like several times. I think they're learning. There's some places where you can't pin. Like I think they're learning where some pin positions are, even on the wall hole on the 5th.
So, sorry, just to digress quickly. On the 10th at Cotswold this last weekend, they had a pin on. So the 10th hole is short par 4. It's over the gorge.
The worst hole in KZN.
Yeah, you hate it, but it's like 3 tiers. So it's at top, middle, and bottom.
I mean, it's not the worst song.
They put the flag
on
the ridge between the bottom and the middle tier, and if I can tell you that the fines that came out afterwards, Oaks had 6 putts at that hole. It was straight Matt.
Like greenskeeper's revenge.
It felt like greenkeeper's revenge. Matt putted it to within half a foot of the hole. It came back down past his feet. So I was on the middle tier, and I had a birdie putt, and I was like, there is no chance I'm getting this to the hole. I got it to within like a foot and a half, and then I was like, all right, well now I've just got to bang this putt, because whether I miss it by like 6 foot or like a foot, it doesn't make a difference.
It's kind of like adventure golf.
It's going off the green. So I think just to your point about like figuring out where you can put pins, I mean, that's a good example of like guys getting on there and making, like a lot of guys on the green and 2 and making ring just because of where the flag was.
So like on the 5th hole, like at Gowrie, like it's like the wall hole. So it's got a green which slopes away from you, right? So if the pin's on that bottom tier, like right at the bottom, and if you leave your ball anywhere on the top of the green, it's a serious adventure getting your ball, and vice versa. You've got to putt up a huge slope. And look, I think the pin they had there was too close to the bottom of the slope. So if you're at the top, you stood like 0 chance of getting it down there or getting it close to the hole. But what was really interesting, JDV, was like those guys I was speaking to, like the guys who were like, oh, polarizing, course is unfair, whatever. Like around that hole, those guys hit some of the, like, because they're good players, like the one guy hit a chip shot. He went over long of the green, and he hit his chip shot like purposely, basically past the hole, and used the slope and turned it around and like pretty much almost holed it. Like it stopped like on the edge of the hole, and the smile on the Oak's face. And I looked at him and I said, Can you have that much fun on like any other golf course? Like, and I know other golf courses have got slopes and that, but like you could see guys using their imagination, And there's, I think what they've done with a lot of those new greens is they've just amplified the contours a little bit compared to the rest of the course, and
but like, those will also soften as like
they will a little bit, but they're just damn interesting, man, and like you're gonna have a lot of fun. Look, you might putt off some of those greens, and you might like hit a ball right to the top of the slope, and it comes back down to you. But let me tell you, you're going to sit there and you're going to go, geez, I could play this shot in like 3 or 4 different ways. Like I could fly it all the way to the hole. I could hit my like bunter hybrid. I could putt this. There's just a lot of different ways that you can do things out there. And I think my last point, JDV, was I think like the psychology, what's interesting with Gowrie, and this talks to sort of psychological aspects of, I guess, kind of life in general. But I don't know if you've ever heard of prospect theory. Prospect theory is basically like an economic theory. It basically says like people weigh losses more than gains. Okay. And I think with Gowrie, what's happened is if they'd built these 18 holes like they are now, I think generally people would be like, this place is like so sick. It's amazing. Like, and what happens with life is that people get very used to something. And a lot of the guys' comments were like, I really just wish, like, I really just love the old Gowrie. They should just go back to that, like, just play those 12 greens or whatever. And I think it's really interesting because it's like, people don't like change. Like, they wanted their old Gowrie. And I was like, guys, this is, you have to embrace the change. The holes are going to play a little bit different. You're never going to get them, like, exactly the same. And I think with time, as I say, guys are going to come back. They're going to learn about how to play some of those holes. There's some really interesting like shots that you can hit there. I think that with time, people are going to really come to appreciate those new 9 holes.
So T, I think to summarize it, so these are 5 points now that I found just on the Gowrie website, which I think summarize exactly what we've just said. Number 1, don't obsess over the scorecard. The first bit of advice is don't obsess over the score. Play against friends, not the scorecard. A good way to do this is match play. You will then remember the good shots and not dwell on the blowouts. It's pretty much 100%. Get to know the course. Don't be intimidated by not always knowing where to hit your drive. Like first meeting your partner or friend, you've got to get to know them. And the same applies to many of the holes at Gowrie. The more you play, the more you'll learn and the more fun it'll be. And I think that's another one. Like my brother's a good example on 4 who like lost his shit because he hit it into bunkers he didn't know were there. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, you can look at the scorecard, etc. But you've got to, you can't just stand up
golf.
and hit.
That's kind of what's going to happen, yeah. And by the way, get yourself a course guide at the pro shop, particularly at Gowrie. It's super useful.
Number 3, embrace new shot strategies. Don't play like you do at most courses. Instead of automatically taking your 60-degree wedge for short shots, try something different. A putter from 50 meters, bump and run up the slopes with 7 or 8 irons. For shots into the green, look carefully at the distances. The correct shot may be to the front of the green rather than aiming at the flag. And I think that goes to your point about very like low scratch sort of handicappers being like, why would I not aim at the flag?
Just taking a number, taking the flag number, just hitting at it. Yeah.
Enjoy every shot. It's more fun than just dragging your 60-degree wedge around the green or throwing your irons close to the pins. Exactly what we've discussed. And number 5, soak up the scenery. Take in your surroundings, watch the crown cranes fly overhead, enjoy the cattle strolling by, listen to the birds and look out for the reedbuck. Enjoy the simplicity of the course, the way the fairways hug the natural contours, and the way the slopes on the green follow the land. Savor it all because it's part of the game. And I think that's 5 very apt things about Gowrie.
I think that's a great way to sum it up. And I wanted to also say, JDV, the thing I really loved about playing 36 holes of just like going, okay, guys, today is about golf. Like, yes, we were there in suits and we had a nice lunch, but like we were on that golf course, like, and this was the saying at young Tom Morris, you know, we were from sunset from sunrise literally to sunset, and the course changes massively during the day. So when you're teeing off, it's cold, the ball doesn't go as far. The wind is in a certain direction. There's like a morning wind. Then there's like a lunchtime wind. And then both times I've played 36 holes there lately, the wind switches. And in the evening, and what's interesting at Gowrie is that pretty much all the par 3s play a crosswind. So you either have, and that was exactly when we played. Yeah. The winds were, like those 2 rounds, it couldn't have been more different in terms of wind directions and that. So like it's like playing a total fresh course. And then just on the scenery, like honestly, top 5 golf moment that like, not just like a shot, but a top 5 memory that I think is like, I will never forget, was playing at the young Tom Morris this year. And, you know, you talk about the scenery. We were finishing our final match on Saturday. And again, we actually made a massive comeback we were 4 down at the turn, me and my partner, and we managed to halve our match. We were 3 down with 4 to play, and we managed to pull out a half. But we were on the 8th hole, and the sun was just setting like over that dam. You know, the folly hole, so the 12th hole, so that where the 8th tee box is. Just like the sun was literally like setting over that, like unbelievable like clouds and like sky. And then one of the guys was like, "Holy shit!" Like turned around, and the full moon was rising, like in the opposite direction. And as we like teed off and we're walking down the 8th fairway, we got this like sunsets on one side, full moon literally rising on the other side. These reedbuck. Like I said to Guy Smith, I said to Jono, the golf director afterwards, I was like, did you release those reedbuck from like a cage or something? Because it looked like that scene where like Oaks have planned this, you know, like full moon, it's almost like the violins start playing, and then these like 4 reedbuck come running like next to us down the fairway. I was like, this is too perfect. But it was incredible. Like it was, and we got a half on the last hole to half the match. So
and where's sunscreen? I got brunted.
Oh yeah, at the Quaich.
Yeah.
The quaked your neck.
Yes, I got brunted.
Yeah, I think one of the memorable thing was JDV and I don't know if we did Fives Alive or something for who was going to sleep in the loft of that Airbnb. But I said to JDV, I was like, yes, you came down that ladder at a speed last night at like 2 a.m, and you were like, I have no memory of coming down that ladder.
Did I come down?
I mean that was like a good 10 feet up that loft. JDV, lacquer chat, guys. In summary, play more match play foursomes, and get yourself a Quaich cup and to drink out of.
Play against friends, not the scorecard.
Yeah. All right, over and out.